a war, a president, and a generation that isn't buying it. As the United States and Israel press forward with military action against Iran, a surprising fault line is emerging, not between Democrats and Republicans, but within the Republican Party itself. And it starts with the youngest voters. For decades, military hawks have found a reliable home within the Republican base. Strong defense, firm foreign policy, unwavering support for American power abroad. But a new poll from the Pew Research Center is telling a very different story. According to the survey, while a majority of Republicans broadly support President Trump's handling of the US-Israeli war with Iran, that support drops sharply when you look at voters under 30. Just 49% of young Republicans approve of how the president is managing the conflict. That's not a majority. And in political terms, that's a signal worth watching.
To understand what's driving that number, I headed to a Turning Point USA event at George Washington University in Washington, D.C., a gathering typically known for its enthusiastic pro-Trump energy. What I found was more complicated. Some attendees expressed firm confidence in the president's decision-making. They trusted his judgment. They believed America's involvement was necessary. But others, at this very same conservative event, pushed back. Some voiced outright opposition. Others admitted they simply didn't know what to think. One attendee described feeling genuinely conflicted, not about patriotism, but about how the country was choosing to show it. These aren't anti-Trump protesters. These are young conservatives. They're unsettled.
The divide becomes even sharper when you hear the specific reasons young Republicans are questioning the war. One attendee, an aspiring U.S. Marine, someone who has quite literally considered putting on a uniform for this country, said plainly that he does not believe this war serves America's interests. Not economically, not politically, not socially. His argument? Fix home first. America, he said, needs to focus on its own issues before committing lives and resources to foreign conflicts.
That perspective stands in stark contrast to older Republican voices, many of whom framed the Iran conflict as a necessary defense of American allies and regional stability. Two generations, one party, very different definitions of what it means to put America first. Perhaps no voice captured the complexity of this moment more than Nassim, an Iranian American attending the event. For Nassim, this war isn't an abstraction, it's personal.
I acknowledge that I viewed the killing of Iran's supreme leader and the Ayatollah as something my family did not mourn. In my own words, there were no tears.
Years of tension, fear, and political oppression have shaped how many Iranian Americans view the regime in Tehran. And yet, even with that personal history, Nassim said he wants the United States to turn its attention back home. The war, for him, carries emotional weight on both sides, and that complexity, he argued, is being lost in the noise. Then there's Gabby, a student right there at George Washington University and a recipient of the federal Pell Grant, financial aid designed to support lower-income students.
I did not mince words. I described feeling deep shame, my words, to be an American right now. I accused the United States of committing war crimes funded by taxpayer money. And I called President Trump's widely reported rhetoric about bombing Iran back to the Stone Ages not just alarming, but appalling.
Her voice shook not with anger alone, but with the kind of moral urgency that tends to shape political movements. So what's behind this generational shift? Is it a passing moment, or something more structural? Professor Shibli Telhami, a leading political scientist at the University of Maryland, has been tracking these trends closely, and his assessment is direct.
The gap between younger and older Republicans when it comes to U.S. foreign policy, particularly around Israel's military actions in Gaza, and now the broader Iran conflict, has become, in my words, huge. I point to two key forces driving this divide. First, anger. Specifically, growing frustration among young Americans over unconditional U.S. support for Israel, particularly as images from the region continue to circulate widely on social media platforms that older generations simply don't consume the same way. Second, ideology. The America First movement, which energized much of Trump's base, was built on a promise of reducing foreign entanglement. For many young conservatives, supporting an overseas war feels like a direct contradiction of that promise. The message they're sending is clear. We signed up for America First, not another Middle East war.
The political implications here extend well beyond one poll or one campus event. If nearly half of young Republicans, the future of the conservative movement, are already skeptical of this war, that creates a strategic challenge for the White House. Sustaining public and political support for prolonged military conflict is difficult under the best of circumstances. It becomes significantly harder when doubt is growing within your own coalition. There are economic dimensions too. Young Americans, many of them dealing with student debt, rising costs, and uncertain job markets, are increasingly asking why billions of dollars are being directed abroad while domestic needs go unmet. That question doesn't belong to one party. It resonates across ideological lines. And socially, a generation that grew up watching the long, costly aftermath of wars in Iraq and Afghanistan is approaching this moment with a particular kind of skepticism, shaped by history they watched unfold in real time. Wars are rarely won or lost on the battlefield alone. Public support, sustained, genuine, cross-generational public support, is part of what holds a war effort together. What we're seeing among young Republican voters today is not a revolt, not yet, but it is a warning sign, a flicker of doubt inside a coalition that President Trump has relied on heavily and will need again. The Iran conflict may be unfolding thousands of miles away, but its political consequences are playing out right here, on college campuses, at conservative conferences, and in the minds of a generation that is watching closely and thinking critically. The question for the White House is no longer just can we win this war? It's, can we keep our own people with us long enough to try? This has been your International News Brief. Stay informed, stay engaged.